Hi there everyone, welcome to Chapter 5, Section 7. This is going to be a whole lot like Chapter 5, Section 6, so that's why we're kind of going through this one a little bit more quickly. This one is called Graph on the Coordinate Plane. It's going to start on textbook page 403 and go through textbook page 406. This is also going to be the last section in this chapter, so you want to make sure you pay attention so that we can get ready for our Chapter 5 test. You should be looking here on textbook page 403. This is a girl with a conducting stick and what looks to be a clipboard. So let's see what this is all about. It says to scan the lesson, predict two things you will learn about graphing on the coordinate plane. So one of the things that you're going to learn about is how to graph in all four quadrants, which you sort of already learned how to do in the last one. And the other thing is how ordered pairs describe a location on the coordinate plane. So you want to make sure that you get both of those there. On the real world link, it says Maria hid the clues to a scavenger hunt for her hiking club. Use the map to show where she hid the clues. Identify the location of each clue. So here it says the first clue is hidden near a tree. Okay, so we're going to underline near a tree. What ordered pair describes its location? So they're asking for the ordered pair that's near a tree. So I'm going to say this one right here that I'm going to circle in pink. And so we're looking for going over 4 and up to 2. So the ordered pair to describe that location would be 4, comma 2. Now don't forget the parentheses. You are going to need those parentheses and the comma so that it looks like an ordered pair. I'm going to go ahead and erase the marks I've made here on the diagram now so that we can look at the next one. The next one says Maria hid the next clue at a location reflected, we need to underline reflected, across the y-axis, also important. Where is it hidden? So we're thinking about it being reflected across the y-axis, which means this line right here, and it's reflected from the tree, which is over there to the right, so now we're going to see that that's going to be the library. Okay, so it's going to be hidden at the library, and that's all they need you to do there. You don't need to actually list the ordered pair. Then it says, I'm also going to go ahead and quickly erase everything I've drawn on there so far so that we have a clean coordinate plane. She walks 3 blocks east and 2 blocks north to place the next clue. Where is it hidden? Now this one is going to be a little more tricky because you have to keep in mind that each one of these blocks is counting as 2. Notice you see 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Then you see on the other side you see negative 4, 6, 8, 10, but you don't see the negative 2. There should actually be a negative 2 right there. Okay, so I'm going to erase that now, but right there where the orange line was. So now it says from the library, basically, it's talking about. So it's very important that for this clue, you understand that we mean from the library. She walks 3 blocks east and 2 blocks north. So from the library, 3 blocks would be 1 whole block here and a half a block here. And then to get 2 blocks north, it would just be 1 block on our diagram because see from 2 to 4 is actually 2 blocks. So as you can see now we're looking at the soccer field. So we're going to write soccer field here. And then it says the next clue is at a location reflected across the x-axis. Where is it hidden? So from the soccer field, I'm going to go ahead and erase, this here. From the soccer field, which is right here where I just put that orange dot, we have a clue that's going to be reflected across the x-axis. So remember, you just want to visualize that paper being folded in half, and now you're at the playground. Okay? So it says, where is it hidden? You're going to write playground. Okay, and I went ahead and wrote that in green, and I also indicated that with the green dot. Notice you can see the orange and the green dot are reflected across the x-axis. Then it says Maria hid the next clue under a rock by the lake. How many blocks east did she walk to the lake? Now remember, you don't want to get tricked on this because each of these blocks is worth 2. So from the playground, which is going to be, let me go ahead and erase everything I've drawn on here so far. So from the playground, I'll switch over to pink again. We're right here. We're like halfway between these two, halfway between 0 and negative 2. So we're actually at negative 1. So that means we'd have 1 little hop here, and then we have 2, 4, 5. So if we have 1 plus 2 plus 2 is 4 plus 1 is 5 plus 1 is 6. Okay? So now we have 6 blocks to the right. So that's 6 blocks east. So you want to make sure that you have 6 blocks here. I'm going to go and explain that just one more time. If you're looking at this and it's a number line where we're sitting right now, here's the 0 and here is the negative 2, and we're actually sitting right here, which would be negative 1. And notice the lake is just between 4 and 5. I'm sorry, 4 and 6. So if you have 0, 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 6, and the lake is sitting right here on the dot in between. So now we're talking about, and we have 1, 1, and then another one. There we go. So now we've made them all look the same. We've changed our graph into having them numbered by 1s, or our line graph here. So we're sitting at negative 1 right now. This is where we are by the playground. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's how we got to the 6. So you want to have that diagram also drawn out to the side. I am going to erase what I have on the actual coordinate plane, but you do need to have this part right here that's drawn in pink. The final clue tells the hikers to walk 5 blocks north and 3 blocks east to find the prize. What ordered pair describes the location of the prize? So 5 blocks north and 3 blocks east from where we're at, which was the lake. So here's the lake. 5 blocks north would be, well, it's going to be 2, 4, and then 5 would be like right there. And then 3 blocks east. So for 3 blocks east, we would go 1 to get from 5 to the 6, 2, 3 brings us over here to the 8. Okay, so now you should see we're going to be right here at this dot. So that ordered pair would be, I'm going to change to pink just so you can see me travel. We would go all the way over to 8, and then we would go up only 1, because remember, if we go up all the way, it's 2. So the ordered pair that we were looking for is going to be 8, 1. And it would look like that. So you want to put that on your answer line down there at the bottom. All right, so now we're looking at textbook page 404. It says to graph ordered pairs. To graph an ordered pair, draw a dot at the point that corresponds to the coordinates. Graph M at -3, 5. So notice they've given you -3, you're going to go back 3 spaces, and 5, you're going to go up, so your dot is right here. Now, we don't want any of the lines drawn when you're actually graphing it, but this is just so that you can see how to graph it. So for number 2, it says graph N at -2.5, comma, -3.5. So we're going to go back 2.5 because that is going to be, there we go, so, because you can see that each box is worth 1. So we're going to go back 1, 2.5, and then we're going to go down 3.5 because we're going negative, so that's why we have to go down. So now our point is going to be there. And again, when you actually graph it, you won't want the lines, you just want the dot right there. Okay? Now they want you to go ahead and do it on your own. So you want to pause the video now so that you can do this on your own. It says to graph and label each point on the coordinate plane below. All right, welcome back. So the first thing you want to do is you want to graph P, which is going to be -2, 4. Now when they say to label it, they just want you to label it with a P. So when you go -2, you're going to go back 2. Now remember, you don't write this. I'm just writing this so that you can see where I'm going. And then you're going to go, because you're going back 2 because it's negative, and then you're going to go up 4 because it's positive, and then you're left with the dot to be right here. And again, I'm just going to erase everything else. I put my dot right back here, and then I'm going to label that with a P. Just like that. Okay, so now for Q, it should be 0, so that means you don't go to the right or left at all, and then -4, so you're just going to go down 4, which would be right here. The next one is going to be negative, oh, and that's, sorry, that was Q, so we want to label that with Q. The next one will be -1/2, so I'm going to go backwards, but I'm not going to go backwards a whole block. I'm only going to go halfway, which would be right about here. And then -2 1/2, so I'll go down -2 and then 1/2, which would bring me to right about, whoops, right about -2 1/2 would be right here. Okay, so it's important that that one is not on any line, and that's going to be R. Okay, now you want to go ahead and take a look at 4.5 and 1. Well, 4.5 is the same as 4.5. That is 4.5. So we're going to go over, let me erase that. We're going to go over to the right 4.5, which would bring us all the way to right about here. And then it says to go up 1. So we're going to go right here. Now remember, it can't be completely on that right or left line because it's a 4.5, not 4. And then the last thing we need to do is label that point, and that point is going to be S. All right, how'd you do? Hopefully you did well. Let's go ahead and go on to textbook 405. Graph reflection on the coordinate plane. Now we actually did a lot of this in the last section, so hopefully we can skim right through this because I taught you how to do this in the last section. This says you can graph points that are reflected across the y and x axes, or I'm sorry, x and y axes. Remember, the points reflected across the x-axis will have the same x coordinate and their y coordinates will be opposite. so that's important. I'm going to change colors here. Points reflected across the y-axis have the same y-coordinate, and their x-coordinates will be opposite. Again, we've learned that in the last chapter, or the last section. Use the notation with this little slash through it to label the reflection of point A. So it looks like it's got A and then like a little apostrophe. So we're going to go ahead and use that as the reflection of point A. So that's an important note right here. You want to make sure that you pay attention to this note so that you know how to tell me that it's the reflection. All right, so now it says graph A, which is 2, -4. So we're going to go to the right 2, and we're going to go down 4, which will be right here in orange. I'd like you to use a colored pencil or pen so that you can show that. And then it says, then graph its reflection across the x-axis. So remember, this is the x-axis, and so the reflection across the x-axis means that the x-coordinate stays the same. So immediately I'm going to write reflection of A. Remember, that's how we do that. And I'm going to write that the x stays the same. So that means I'm still going to go over 2, and the y will be the opposite. So instead of -4, now it's going to be +4. So we're going to go ahead and plot that point right here. So this is how we would show that, and this is the point that we would have now. We're going to do the same thing here for 4. It says to graph B, -1.5 and 3. So I'm going to use orange to graph -1.5. So I need to go back 1.5, which would be right about here, where I did in orange, and then up 3. So we're right up here. Now I'm going to change colors so that we can do its reflection. But remember, the reflection of B, the reflection of B is written like this. And now I need the ordered pairs. So the reflection of B will be, remember, the x-axis will be the opposite now, so it's +1.5, and it's going to be -3. Or, I'm sorry, +3, sorry about that. So the y stays the same, and it's the opposite of the x, because we're reflecting it across the y-axis. So now we have +1.5, which is going to go in this direction, and then we go up 3 still, so we're right here. So notice again, if you folded the paper down the y-axis, you would have the same dot on the same piece right there. So hopefully that makes sense, and this would technically also be our answer. That's where that point is reflected. Now you want to go ahead and try this one on your own. Go ahead and pause the video so that you can do that now. All right, great. Hope you did well with that. The first thing says to graph -1, 5. So we're going to go ahead and graph -1, which will be back 1, and up 5, which will be up way up here to the top where I graphed in red. Now I'm going to change to blue because it says then graph its reflection on the x-axis. So right away I'm going to make sure that I do this so that I remember that I'm doing this on the x-axis. So if I'm reflecting on the x, I'm going to say, first let me label this C, so you should as well. And then I'm going to say to myself, okay, when I'm reflecting on the x-axis, that means if my original point was -1 on the x, or on this with the C, then I'm going to stay -1 here because we're reflecting on the x. And if my original point was 5, now it's going to be -5. So now let's go ahead and graph that in blue. So now we go back 1 just like we did, but now we go down 5. So now we're going to be right here, and this will be the reflection of C. So note that that is going to be C with that little apostrophe right there. Now we're going to do the same thing with D. So first we're going to graph D, which is 2. So we're going to go over 2, and we're going to go up 3.5, which would be right here where I've notated this, and I'm going to label that with a D. Then I'm going to write that we're going to do the reflection of D, and we're doing this across the y-axis. So I'm going to go back really quickly. You want to make sure you put a circle around that x-axis. So you want to make sure you put it around the y-axis. So now we know we're going to do the reflection of D on the y-axis. So that means that the y value stays the same. So the y will be 3.5 still. And remember what happens to the x, it becomes a -2 because it's the opposite. So it'll be -2. So now we're going to go back 2 and up 3.5. So we will be back 2, up 3.5, which will be right, whoops, here. And so this will be the reflection of D. And this will be your answer here. And now we're looking at textbook page 406 with this guy, this gentleman rather, looking at a computer. It says, Mr. Martin is using a coordinate plane to design a logo. He graphs points at 2, 4 and 2, -2. He reflects 2, -2 across the y-axis. Then he reflects the new point across the x-axis. What figure is Mr. Martin using for his logo? So let's go ahead and work through this problem. Even though it's done for us, we still want to work through it. I'm going to change to the pink pen, and we're going to first plot the 2 points. So 2, 4, we're going to go over 2 and up 4. So you should see that point right here in pink. I'm going to change to green now and do the 2, negative 2. So I'm going to go over 2 and down 2. So that gives me the green dot that I just plotted there. Then it says he reflects 2, negative 2. Excuse me. I'm going to change to red. So he reflects 2, negative 2 across the y-axis. So immediately off to the side, I'm going to go ahead and I'll actually do this down below. All right, I'll do this down below. Since it says he reflects it across the y-axis, I'm going to write 2, negative 2, and then I'm going to write reflect, and this is across the y, so I'm going to write reflect y, and then x, y, so that means my negative 2 is what stays the same, and I need the opposite of 2, which is also negative 2. So now I'm going to plot that point in red. So I'm going to go back 2 and down 2, which is how I get my, what is my red dot now. And then it says, then he reflects the new point, so that's the 2, negative 2. So hold on one second, let's change that to the 2, negative 2. All right, so I've written new point, negative 2, because that's what we got when we reflected the y. So then it says he reflects the new point across the x-axis. So I'm going to change to blue here because reflects, and that's going to be across the x-axis. So we know we're going to reflect this negative 2 that we got right here across the x-axis. So I'm going to write again, reflect and x. I would like you to do the same. Since we're reflecting it across the x-axis, now we have negative 2 in the x spot, because remember that's the one that we keep the same. Then the negative 2 becomes positive 2, because that is the opposite. So now we want to go ahead and graph the negative 2, so we go back 2 and we go up 2, and we will get what is now my blue spot, or blue circle or dot. So now you can see that the shape that he is making is a trapezoid. So you would want to write trapezoid. And again, I realize they've done this for you. I would like you to do it along with me and make sure that you have all the notes that I have here. Now they want you to try it on your own. Go ahead and pause the video and do that now. Welcome back. Hopefully you were able to work through this problem with no problems. So I'm going to go ahead and color code the video this problem just like I did the last one. It says Mr. Shaw is drawing a map of the school. Mrs. Shaw. Her room is at negative 3, 4. And so right away, even before I read the rest of the problem, I'm going to plot that. Negative 3, back 3, and positive 4. That means I go up to the 4. So that dot is going to be right here. This is her room. And the gym, so I'm going to change colors, is at 3, 4, which is positive 3, 4. So I'm going to go ahead and do that one. Over 3, up 4. Okay, so positive 3, 4. So this is the gym. Okay, so now you can see too that I've labeled the gym in her room. And then it says the library is a reflection of 3, 4 across the x-axis. So I'm changing to blue now. So I'm going to underline library. I'm going to put a box around the word reflection, put a circle around 3, 4, and underline the x-axis. So let's go ahead and write the original point. So original is going to be the 3, 4. Okay? Then we are going to reflect, so you want to write reflect, across which axis? Remember, that was the x-axis. So now, before we even really think about what that means, we're going to keep the x the same, so that means our x, which is the 3, stays the same. And then we need the opposite of 4, which is going to be negative 4. So now I'm going to plot that point. Positive 3 means I go to the right 3. Negative 4 means I go down 4. So that's going to be right here. So check to make sure that your point was right there. And then it says this point is reflected across the y-axis to graph the office. So now I'm going to change to orange. This point is reflected across the y-axis to graph the office. So now let's go ahead and look at that. So now we have our blue point, which was at 3, negative 4. Then I'm going to write reflect. Again, remember we're reflecting. And we're going to do it across the y-axis. You should have all of this as well. If you don't have this written, you need to write it now. And then I'm going to go back to my orange that I used for this particular dot. And now we're going to think about what it means. Set up our ordered pairs and go, okay, if it's reflecting across the y-axis, then that means that the y stays the same. So our y is the negative 4, so negative 4 will stay the same. And then that means that our x is the opposite. So instead of 3, it's going to be negative 3. Okay, so now we're going to plot that, negative 3, negative 4, which means we go back 3 and down 4. And so that point is going to be plotted right here. Okay. Now we're going to look at the very last piece, or the very last question, and it says, what figure is graphed on the map? Well, we could connect those dots, which you should do here. And if you connected those dots, you can see that the figure is going to be a rectangle. So you want to write rectangle on the line right there for G. All right, great job. Now we've made it to the end of the chapter, or the section and the chapter actually. So now you're going to do the homework, which is just textbook page 406, number 1. That's all I need you to do for this section for right now. And then I'm also going to make a short test review as well. But for now, this is all you're going to have to do for homework. And I will, whoops, I think I have one more slide. Oh, I do! Rocky in stealth mode trying to steal the candy. So hopefully you can see the candy is right there and he is trying to steal it through any means possible. I just thought that might brighten your day. Have a good evening.